History Bites Back, Confronting the Atomic Leviathan in Jaws. Part 1. History often has the inexplicable tendency to bite back, catching us off guard, forcing us to confront moments from our past which can unearth bad memories, which agitate rather than soothe, which move us backwards rather than forwards, which alter our present identities instead of solidifying them, all the while testing us. Incidentally, the legacy of 1970s America, according to Stephanie Slocum Schaefer, was the necessity for Americans to come to terms with limits on personal, communal, and global scales. Indeed, throughout the decade, America was subject to various social earthquakes that culminated in the development of a deeper, more thorough suspicion of the instruments of public life and a more profound disillusionment with the corruption and inefficiency of public institutions. Two incidents in particular contributed to this highly unstable national mood. The first of which was the resignation of President Richard Nixon following the 1974 Watergate scandal, and the second was America's retreat from the quagmire that had become the Vietnam War in 1975. Add to these the persistent stagflation of the economy, the Arab oil embargo, the Roe versus Wade controversy, and the Iranian hostage crisis, and one understands why President Jimmy Carter addressed what he perceived as a confidence crisis plaguing the nation during his 1979 Malaise speech, in which he lamented of a crisis that strikes at the very heart and soul and spirit of our national will. Needless to say, in tandem with the complex relationship existing between Hollywood and American pop culture, such extensive socio-ideological transformations, which propelled American thought and culture into a new era, would have a profound influence upon the industrial practices of making and distributing the Hollywood motion picture, the new aesthetic styles of these movies, and the wide array of themes and issues contained within them. Indeed, as various Hollywood historians argue, no film epitomized the cinematic transformations of 70s Hollywood more so than Steven Spielberg's Jaws. Thomas Schatz, for example, argues that Jaws heralded the arrival of a new era of post-classical American filmmaking known as the New Hollywood. If any single film marked the arrival of the New Hollywood, it was Jaws, the Spielberg-directed thriller that recalibrated the profit potential of the Hollywood hit and redefined its status as a marketable commodity and a cultural phenomenon as well. The film brought an emphatic end to Hollywood's 5-year recession, whilst ushering in an era of high-cost, high-tech, high-speed thrillers, he wrote. Based upon the best-selling 1974 novel by Peter Benchley, Jaws tells the story of a giant man-eating shark terrorizing the seaside town of Amity during the 4th of July holiday weekend. Despite being initially budgeted at $3.5 million, an accumulation of various well-documented production issues afflicting the Jaws set in Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, resulted in this figure rising above the 10 million mark. They include the constant technical failures of the mechanical shark Bruce, the daily script alterations, the arduous ocean filming missions which yielded less than substantial amounts of usable footage, and the original 55-day shooting schedule which dragged on to a grueling 159 days. Such issues were, however, compensated by the considerable commercial success enjoyed by Jaws, attributed by Michael Pye and Linda Miles to Universal Studios' transformation of film into event through clever manipulation of the media. As David Cook elaborates, to build a national audience and promote what Universal called Jaws consciousness, the studio had Brown, Zanuck, Benchley, and production personnel like Verna Fields, the film's editor, on the talk show circuit for 8 months before the film's release. 3 days before June 20th, when the film was scheduled to open at 464 North American sites, Universal unleashed a saturation advertising blitz via all media outlets within signal range of the theaters, exploiting John Williams' ominous theme music and coordinating it with a print campaign organized around the striking graphic image of a huge open-mouthed shark rising underwater towards a naked female swimmer. The promotion was a stunning success. By the end of the summer, the movie, the book, and hundreds of product tie-ins had raised sharks to the level of national fetish. 25 million tickets had been sold, and the film had earned nearly $129.5 million in domestic rentals. It would ultimately earn $129.5 million and become until 1977 the top grossing film of all time. And it would win 3 Academy Awards: Best Sound, Best Original Score for John Williams, and Best Editing. Such success, which spawned a number of sequels, including Jaws 2, Jaws 3D, and Jaws the Revenge, has led film critic Justin Wyatt to interpret Jaws as being the first ever high-concept film, in the sense that in terms of marketing, its relatively simplistic plot concerning the attempts by Amity's police chief to save the town from a giant man-eating shark could easily be reduced to the focal image of the shark, which then forms the basis for an aggressive advertising campaign key to merchandising tie-ins and ancillary markets, creating synergy between film, products, and related media. Incidentally, a consistent criticism levelled against Spielberg is that he, along with fellow movie brat George Lucas, is guilty of initiating the summer blockbuster mentality, which, with its emphasis on spectacular action features and bloated budgets, diminished the long-term prospects of the Hollywood Renaissance, which was a European-style auteur cinema that prevailed in America from 1967 to 1975, by removing the creative powers of emerging auteur directors and transferring them onto the studio functionaries. As Hollywood critic Peter Biskind has argued, Jaws changed the business forever, diminishing the importance of print reviews, making it virtually impossible for a film to build slowly, finding its audience by dint of mere quality. In a sense, Spielberg was the Trojan horse through which the studios began to reassert their power. Such was Spielberg's and Lucas's influence that every studio movie became a B-movie, and at least for the big action blockbusters that dominate the studio slates, second unit has replaced first unit. However, to hold Spielberg personally responsible for off-screen developments, such as shifting audience demographics, in which the youth market shifted from the politically hip cine-literate viewers of a few years earlier to even younger viewers with more conservative tastes and sensibilities, sociological alterations, which saw the decline of the drive-in cinemas and the rise of the multiplex cinemas and shopping malls, or universal advertising stratagems, is, I feel, unjustified. After all, as many critics strangely seem to forget, the fledgling director was only 26 at the time, and, up until then, had only Jewel and the Sugarland Express to his name. Instead, it is worth reiterating 2 points made by Schatz. The first of which is that only positive audience response and favourable word of mouth can propel a film to genuine hit status. And the second was that the release of Jaws happened to coincide with events both inside and outside the movie industry in the mid-1970s, which had little or nothing to do with that particular film. Now, on the simplest level, Spielberg's job was to generate an unprecedented form of terror. The fact he succeeded in producing a pop culture classic, which placed Americans at the opposite end of the food chain, whilst battling a colossal mountain of production issues, certainly minimises such criticisms of him. After all, one should be appreciative of Spielberg taking American filmmaking in a new, daring and exciting direction. No other director at that time took the risk to force American audiences to wade into the ocean depth of uncertainty and face a colossal leviathan intent on making a tasty snack out of them, especially amidst a difficult period of national introspection following Watergate and Vietnam. An introspection that gradually shifted the critical focus once again onto America's atomic bombing of Hiroshima during the Second World War, an unprecedented event that drew piercing questions about America's position and national identity within a new atomic world, following years of worldwide conflict across the lands, skies and seas.